Welcome everyone to the Miss Art World podcast. I'm Catherine with my co-host Samuel.
What's up, T-Pain?
We also have my little sister is joining me in my little frame because she just came down to visit. So I'm like, hey, join our podcast because this is a really fun one. One of my favorite artists is our guest today. K Ryan Henisey is here.
Thank you.
And he's been on our podcast before, literally has had the longest podcast episode that we've ever recorded.
Which nobody got to the end of.
But if you did, it's amazing. We'll keep this one shorter so that people will actually listen to it. But if you would like a 3-hour podcast episode, you can find it on our former episodes. I think you were like maybe episode 8 or
9.
something.
I think 9? I'm 9 and 49 or 48. Oh, I should have looked. I've lost the count now.
Me too.
I do have to say though, shout outs. It was great to hear David Jester, who, if any of you listened to the previous podcast, I'm obsessed with. He is literally my favorite artist in the world. So there's that answer. And it was delicious to listen to him talk about his artwork and his process and the meaning behind all of it again. But really, I loved and was so impressed by how well Ibuki spoke about her artwork. Like, I wish every artist could talk about their practice with such clarity and speed, right? I mean, like, she knew exactly what she wanted to say and said it. And I love it. I also got to meet her right after she finished a bunch of performances at the show there that was in San Pedro, Aftermath. Ugh, see, it's not about me. I've forgotten the name of it. Sanctuary of the Aftermath. I do have a brain. Which was curated by Jason Jen and Voislav Radonovich. That she was amazing. Then I literally caught the last of her interview with them after doing a performance around all of the artwork that was installed. And that show was beautiful. Shout out to both of those wonderful and amazing artists. You can find them at LA Art Documents, by the way. Gosh, was there a question I was supposed to answer in there?
I don't think so. I think it was we were just
This is why that podcast is 3 hours.
You have so much going on lately. Just tell us it all. Tell us everything that you're doing and all the exciting things that are coming up.
All right, I will do a quick run through because there's a lot, and then we'll land on the one that's coming up. I am literally finishing out a solo show at TAG. This is my 3rd solo show here. TAG is an artist cooperative that's in Los Angeles. It's a 28-year-old artist run. There's no individual owner. We're a not-for-profit organization, so the organization doesn't it generates revenue through the artist membership and through art sales. And in exchange for that, the artists receive the vast majority of the income from art sales, which is really great. So, and we the 40 artists that are members, of which I am chief artist. I'm the president of the organization. We make all of the decisions, and I play a very heavy hand in that decision-making process. We had a full revamp over the COVID closure. So we refreshed our brand. We refreshed the facilities here. So brand new paint jobs, kind of a redesign of the furniture and the space. And the feedback and response has been amazing. We went from an average daily attendance pre-COVID of something between like 6 to 8 people to an average daily attendance of something between 12 and 25 people during the pandemic. So I'm just going to pat myself on the back for all of the great work at TAG.
Yeah, me too. On the back.
And also during that time, we kind of restructured the internal organization. So the artists are taking a greater lead in the ownership. And we changed the staffing structure, also our hours, changed the way we're kind of addressing the public. We've moved away from cafe to in-house art review management, like a whole host of changes that are better overall for the business. So, and then behind all of that, and why I have a stake in that is I'm calling it my MBA in fine art management and small business administration, even though it's not a credentialed program. And that's because I really want to understand the art market. I've been thinking about having a space and running art programs and how you do that in a commercial setting, how you make that work. And the art market is actually a really scary place. It's got one of the biggest wealth distribution disparities in terms of all industries. But when we talk about it as an industry as a whole, it's almost $1 trillion in annual income for the United States by itself. So I've been doing a lot of research about art market, and I'm planning on writing a book about that, wrapping up my research now, and I keep speaking that into the universe because I want it to become real. And if I tell all of you that I'm going to do it, I'm actually going to hold myself accountable to it. Whereas if I just tell myself, it might sit on the back burner forever.
Because we'll ask you, we'll say, hey, Ryan, where's that book that you're going to write?
That is exactly what I want. I want to be held accountable for promising. I mean, there's a good wealth of knowledge. It's come back to me that in the little LA, not-for-profit artist-run space universe that is here in Southern California, I've become known as the guy who understands the market and money, and that's pretty cool. It's weird for me because I spent my whole life thinking that I didn't want to have anything to do with math or sales. And then my entire career, which included 10 years as a school teacher, was really all about selling stuff and doing math. So there's that. Wrapping up the show here at TAG, which is called Remnants. You can check it out both at taggallery.net and on kryanhenisey.com. And I'm at K Ryan Henisey everywhere. So you can find things about that there. And then the really big, giant, crazy, exciting one is I was just awarded a $5,000 performance art grant for the city of West Hollywood for the summer. So starting July 17th, I will be resurrecting We Ho Jesus. And I will be Jesus 3.0, which is inspired by the work of Kevin Lee Light, who used to walk around as We Ho Jesus until his death in December of 2017. He's a really great person. Go ahead and look him up online. And so basically he would walk around as Jesus with his long hair and his beard, just like me, taking advantage. I grew them, I might as well play with them. And he would basically wear a white caftan, right? Full length white caftan, and was We Ho Jesus. The song Street Jesus by Aerosmith was written about him, and he's featured in a number of commercials, television programs, music videos, and a couple of films as, himself as Jesus, right? Like he appears on the Street Jesus. And so it's kind of bringing back that idea, but also mixing it with my love of drag culture, a little bit of Barbie fun. I'm definitely inspired by Miss Art World and the thought processes that go behind it. Well, because it's, I really loved it, and I really loved listening to you talk about Miss Art World South Dakota, because this is somewhat of the same idea, right? I am the third iteration of a character if we consider the first iteration, right? The actual written about figure of Jesus is the first iteration of the character. And so it's kind of these leaps and interpreting it. And it's like, as I'm thinking about all of the art behind it in the process, how can I then interpret this secular, right, pop art Jesus in more and more ways? And it is very much a secular pop art read of the Jesus figure. There's no religious connotation with any of the messaging that I'm sharing. There will not be. I'm using religious iconography to play with pop art and secular contemporary concepts. So I brought up Barbie because one of the big things about Jesus 3.0 is that the different costumes for Jesus will be different personas of Jesus 3.0. So like you have architect Barbie and Malibu Barbie and etc. Barbie, I'll have the same with Jesus. So I think I've landed on its pina colada Jesus. There's still a little bit more to go, but this is going to be the first one. It's the launch of summer. So July 17th, I'm planning. Here they're pineapple prints. I can do backwards videos.
Oh yeah.
So pineapple prints, and it's in a rainbow coloration down the whole caftan here. And I replaced, the thing I'm most proud about right now is I've replaced the buttons with rainbow colored pearlescent buttons, little details. And then Jesus, of course, has a shawl. And so I have a pineapple print in this beautiful pink, shiny fabric. And it's kind of like a watermark pineapple print. You'll have to come see because it doesn't come across in the video. But so, and then I think I'm gonna with this one go get one of those tall drink flutes from one of the Hollywood knickknack stores and make like a little epoxy Jesus face that's the icon that I'm using, which is just a graphic render of my own face, right? A cutout posterized graphic render of my face. And so do a cutout of that in epoxy resin and put it on it with a little pineapple cap. And I might make a little pineapple cap for myself. So that's
gay.
Yeah. So the pitch to the city was that every Saturday and Sunday, I will walk around for a minimum of 2 hours in public spaces in West Hollywood as Jesus 3.0, their rainbow majesty, the Hollywood coming. Yeah. And so it's there's no real set times, but I'll be posting things to social media and to the website. Which is thehollywoodcoming.com and at the Hollywood Coming on Instagram, just the Hollywood Coming, or just Hollywood Coming on Twitter, because they have a character count issue. And I don't like when things don't match. Boo, Twitter. But otherwise, I love Twitter. It's actually my favorite. Out of all of them, they're all awful, horrible. We should ditch all of them and then communicate with people in person and use our websites like decent, rational human beings instead of pandering to the ad machines that are social media. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, so Jesus is coming. Jesus is about pop art. A lot of it's going to be fun and playful. So Pina Colada Jesus is about summer. It's about getting out and having fun. One of the things that I pitched to the city is that Jesus will be sharing as an ambassador, as a public art ambassador to the city. We'll be sharing 7 pillars of community, and those are directly tied one-to-one correlations to the core values of the city of West Hollywood. And that's really fun for me, being able to interpret what the city has defined as important to itself and its mission, but doing it with some politicized and some very important issues of the day. So there will be a Black Lives Matter Jesus. One of Jesus's messages, Jesus 3.0's messages, is trans awareness. And so Jesus 3.0 will identify as they, them, and is actually a non-binary asexual character. But don't let asexual mean not sexy. There will be some sexy Jesuses. Jesus has 3 basic silhouettes that are, and 2 of those are going to be the inspiration for the public art process. And the first of those is Jesus in a caftan, usually with a sash of some kind or a shawl. And actually, I'm going to build the sashes and shawls to be interchangeable, right? It can be a sash, now it can be a shawl. And then the next one is kind of the toga style Jesus, very classic Greek, Roman, Renaissance art style of toga Jesus. So those are 2 basic silhouettes that we'll be working with. And I'm collaborating with LGBT and West Hollywood or West Hollywood resident costumers. I had a fitting this morning with Katie Brightside. She has an episode on the Miss Art World podcast. And Katie is doing a couple of costumes. We're working on the idea behind the second one, but the first one is off of her Mad World design, and we're calling it Mental Health Awareness Jesus. And so there will be a focus on messaging around mental health and mental health resources with that character. It is a rather darker read of Jesus. So there's lots of blacks, some skulls. There's a bit of sexiness in the design of it. And it's a kimono inspired look. So it's going to be very, very different in a fashion sense. I'm also working with Chuck Hong, who is one of the wonderful staff here at Tag Gallery. So I get to work with him all the time. And Chuck also has a podcast on the Myth Art podcast. And so Chuck's going to make me a toga inspired at my request. I'm very, very interested in this toga look. I'm working largely on the caftan looks, which I'm using pre-made caftans, and I'm hand embellishing them in different ways. I'm literally learning how to sew as we go. So mine need to be easier and more like woodblock prints and things like that. I can hand stitch, I can do buttons.
What pushed you to do this project?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's kind of all a mix of things. Having the hair and beard, really, I like, people remark on it. Like random people in the world, I'll be at the checkout register, and the clerk will say, "You look like Jesus," and it's like, well, thank you. And yes, I do look like white Jesus, right? I look like the European, like very, I literally have, this is my hair. I washed and blow dried it today. And, that's it. That's all I did. So it's very straight, and it holds the silhouette well. So, and then I was thinking with that, and people calling me Jesus on the street, I started to think more about Heavenly Light. I live in West Hollywood, which is a requirement for the grant, and for a lot of, not all, but a lot of the public art grants for West Hollywood. And so I'd seen him over, the near decade that I've now lived in West Hollywood. And he was a constant physical art presence that was always a joy to see. And in the same way that Angeline is a sighting presence in Los Angeles. And locally to West Hollywood, we have the Pink Lady. Google her, she's rather interesting, and she literally lives like 2 blocks away from me. So I see her at the Starbucks around my corner like once a week. And I used to see Heavenly Light just as frequently. because I live in West Hollywood and I used to commute through Hollywood, which was where he would do the majority of his walks. And so that was all in the zeitgeist. And then with California reopening, there was the grant opportunity. And I had spoken wouldn't it be funny if I did a pop art reading of Jesus as Jesus 3.0, blah, 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 blah. You know, like literally I had laughed about it twice with a couple of friends. And then the public art opportunity opened. And I said to myself, let's do it. There's no reason not to put in for it. And it all fell into place. You know, but it's hard because there's a whole nother mixture in there about pop art and about math. And I'll just really quickly throw this out there because we're going to quickly hit 45 minutes and this is a whole different podcast. But so in the art market, art that actually sells, the number one thing that dominates right now is the mid-century masters. And the reason they dominate is because it's a really small market share. There's not enough artwork to go around for the demand. And supply and demand truly do work in art. So that's the biggest. The smallest is contemporary art. It makes up 1% of the entire market share of what's sold. And when you look even more closely at that, right, and you define what contemporary art means, really that 1% is made up of pop art, solely pop art. So pop art is the only contemporary art that has a measurable opportunity of income generation in the contemporary art sector. So everything else that we are doing, everything else, which is all of contemporary abstract expressionism, which is everything that we are making, right? Because contemporary abstract expressionism is basically just defined as anything that's made right now in a non-traditional style, including pop art. So it's what I make, it's what Catherine makes with her nails, it's what all of the artists at Tag, like literally you go to the Tag website, it doesn't matter the different style, the different type of art that they're making, it is all contemporary abstract expressionism. All of it, everything made today is contemporary abstract expressionism. But the only part of it that's sellable today is pop art. If you're making anything else, you're making it for immortality, right? You're making it in the vain hopes that your name will be remembered and your art will be remembered in history, because you will never make money off of it. And when you look at the top 10 selling artists in the world, they're all pop artists. And the top three, they change top three living artists, and they change a little bit, are Banksy and Hearst and Kuntz. Whether you like them or not, those are the top three. And I'll get off my soapbox with this statement, and it is that if you look closely at those three and you look closely at the top 10, every single one of them has rejected the status quo of art hierarchy. Meaning that they have not followed the quote blue chip or private gallery road, and in fact have created their own markets. Every single one of them. It's all available. It's just digging.
Top paid artist, and my list says Kanye West, Elton John. So how do you look it up to where
you have to look up fine art. Yeah. And
wrong list, Samuel, wrong list.
Yeah, and sometimes, especially like with the smarter search engines like Google, for instance, I actually subtract things. So I'll subtract music from the search, right? Which is the parentheses minus music and parentheses. Sorry, I'm a nerd. And also I feel like I literally jumped on this call and was like, boom, here's what I want to say. And yeah.
No, it's great. I literally, most times I will send Samuel like the artist a week ahead of time. And because we scheduled this kind of later. And so I was like, shoot, I have to send Samuel Ryan's like Instagram and everything. And I was like, but it'll be great because Ryan's a great talker. So literally we could just like have him going and like.
I mean, there is still, and I said this in episode 9, we think, and which I've this is how vain I am. I know I've listened to it at least 3 times fully, all the way through. All the way, like it's actually like long drives. It's one of my favorite things. I go back to a bunch of the episodes, but I actually like to go back to mine because you forget what you said. And it's amazing to me how even in, you know, what, the year or so that it's been, some of my opinions have changed. Right. And which is like, where to anyone who speaks on a recording.
No, it's really scary because people will ask me things and my opinion has changed. And I know that I've said things before and then it seems like I'm inconsistent, but I think you do grow and you alter your opinion. But yeah, I agree with you.
You're supposed to grow and change.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of living. And I think that's what nowadays we're getting very confused with. People don't have the same thoughts they had yesterday. They're growing and they're changing. And you're always hopefully changing for the better. And you shouldn't really punish people for what they said or believed in the past, especially if they no longer believe that, which is, it's not to go and grab your pitchfork and chase people down.
It's totally true. Totally true. I want to look up because I want to get her name right. And I don't want to call her the popsicle lady. And so I'm going to look it up. And
Betsy?
yes, thank you. So on the subject of pop art, the entire time I listened to that episode, I was like, this is everything that the research says, right? And if you go back and listen to that episode with the knowledge that pop art is the only salable type of art, and you listen to how she got to the popsicles, it's why she's so successful now. And just, you know, another on pop art with that idea, right, is that David Jester's the same way. So both of them are creating work that's contemporary abstract expressionism, but the popsicles are pop art by the nature of their design and the materials that they're made out of.
That's episode 76 for anyone.
Yes, it was recent. Yeah, very recent. And then the same with David Jester, who's actually painting in a very traditional oil style, but he's doing it with contemporary subjects, which makes it pop art. There's also some other pop art elements in there. His use of the male figure as a sexual object, as something for the male gaze to consume, it would fall into that pop art kind of vein, but now we're getting a little too intellectual and verging back to contemporary abstract expressionism, right? So see how that line is really fine and thin, but when it comes to Jesus, that's kind of where I want to be. I want the whole piece to be pop art, and the performance is only the first aspect of it. There will be my next year solo show at TAG. I'm already planning will include the frocks, probably appearances as Jesus in the space. It will also include photographs, and I've already reached out to a handful of photographers to create pieces of artwork in their vision using these tools as part of the palette. And those will be part of the exhibit. I'd also like a couple of videos to go with that. So the exhibit will actually be costumes, photos, and video of Jesus 3.0, all of which then are salable objects. But Jesus will live as something that can continue on, you know, as a performance piece, just like Miss Art World, for instance. And the nice thing about it is it's really just showing up. right? It's not like I have to put on a mantle, or, you know, I do have some very specific messages I want to get across, and particularly contemporary political messages, messages of friendliness and brotherhood and those kind of things, but very much in a secular context.
Are you preaching then? Are you like, not necessarily, because I guess it is preaching. Are you talking to anyone, or no? Is it just the look?
It's just the look, but it will be. I mean, they're part of the pitch, and part of the performance is passing out postcards and stickers and those kind of things that are all pop art and related. I'm thinking about also making some posters for the local businesses, like Jesus was seen here, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody that wants to play along. It's all very self-promotional, which is another wonderful aspect of the pop art portion of it. And I will be having conversations with people on the street as they want to interact with me. And it will be with the messaging. And I plan to stay in character when I'm wearing Jesus. But there's, you know, not too much of it. Like the big things that I'm going to have to be, I'm going to need to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more kind as Jesus 3.0 than Ryan 1.0 is naturally. It just turns out that if you put me in a room with 100 other people, I'm, you know, the 13th person in line that's going to speak up for discomfort or want or need or anything like that, which just means I have a you know, 87% disagreeable score, for those of you that are wondering. But really, it's just, you know, I do a little meditation before, a nice relax, but it's walking around. It's fun, it's enjoyable. I expect to have some promotional appearances at venues. There's been some talks with one of the bar promoters about going to a couple of places for the nightlife scene. Whether or not they want me to, you know, get on a stage or make a speech, I don't think so. I think they just want people to show up, you know, for the Instagram factor. Yeah.
Or you can
start, which is really what it's about.
Wine.
Yes, exactly. I should figure that one out, because I bet I could do like an apparatus in my sleeves where I could like,
oh yeah,
yeah. Although, ew, hot body wine.
Especially during the summer. It'd be really gross.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a big want behind the toga style Jesus, is it's summer and it's hot, so I want sleeveless.
Yeah.
So you had said earlier that you, with the whole Jesus, that you wanted to stay away from religion or the religious aspect of it. Do you have already ways or certain sayings that you say to somebody who want to bring you into that religious aspect or that area for it?
I mean, that's a really good question, and probably something I should think about more. But I think it really has to do with what I'm wearing. Will be kind of how the message comes across, right? So Black Lives Matter Jesus, for instance, is going to be very much focused on the message of Black Lives Matter. And I kind of enjoy the context of Jesus saying Black Lives Matter, right? Even though it's just my Jesus, I like that concept that any Jesus would say that, because I think it's very necessary. And my plan for that is a black caftan, and I'm going to hand print the names, starting with the people who've been killed in police actions with this year and working backwards until I run out of fabric. So I want it to be a very impactful, moving, and directed, right? And the messaging, even on the website, when I focus on that topic on social media, all of the messaging will direct right back to Black Lives Matter. So in some cases, like Pineapple Jesus is truly self-promotional, right? It's just like, I'm fun, it's summer, come look at my cute pink shit. But Black Lives Matter Jesus is actually topical, right? And so I want people to take away the message, or to think about for the first time that Black lives do matter. So if I were wearing that and somebody were to pull me into a conversation about religion, I would be engaging with them on the topic of Black Lives Matter and why that would be important, regardless of the secular or the religious context. And why, I mean, if somebody wants to draw me into a religious conversation, I'll have a religious conversation with them. I'm comfortable with the Bible. I read it one time all the way through. It was difficult, not gonna lie. Some of it I didn't understand when I read it, but I got there. I wish I hadn't have read it so young, because I feel I missed out on the context of the Psalms, which are actually beautiful, right? And when you return to them as an adult, they're very beautiful and very sexy, which is completely lost on a 14-year-old kid. But there's a lot of blood and violence in there before we get to Jesus. And then once we get to Jesus, aside from the moneylenders, right, and the politicians, Jesus is pretty nice to everybody. And that's another big focus of it, right, is when we look at Jesus as a character, when we remove the Catholic and the Judeo-Christian concept of Jesus from the character, what we actually have is a rebel, right? We have somebody who kicked against the status quo at every step of the way and ended up crucified for it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's a kind of a more powerful contemporary statement, right? Than because we're rugged individualistic hero worshipers in the United States, right? So that actually is a better story for us. It's a better marketable story for us as a people than the savior of humanity. And probably, maybe, I don't know, that could be related to why we've seen a loss in religion across the United States and the world. Is the story, which I think is true in the greater context. And now I'm going to get on a whole nother soapbox about postmodernism and deconstruction, and I'm going to avoid it. You
have all the thoughts on all the topics, and I'm like, I've never even thought about this.
But if we do all agree, right, in postmodernism, which all of us who were born after 1970 have grown up under, that is the zeitgeist of our universe. We do not have a choice in it. But if we all agree that everything is equal and nothing has value, if we agree that God is dead and that there's no meaning to existence or life, right? Where does that leave us? And with that, right, with the death of God that came out of postmodernism and deconstruction, whether that's a real thing or not, it's meant that we've had to reevaluate not just what we are as a species, but what we believe in a secular context. And is humanism enough? And I think the argument right now that we're seeing across the political sphere is really an argument that secular humanism is not enough, that it's not enough to keep capitalism and selfishness from holding power. And so how do we mitigate that as a people and a species? But again, soapboxes, postmodernism, Well, let's wrap it up. Here's what I'll say. Jesus 3.0 is going to appear Saturdays and Sundays in West Hollywood. You can find the exact times and locations, well, the variable times and locations, but I'll be around in those spaces on at The Hollywood Coming or at Hollywood Coming Instagram and Twitter, or you can go to the website, which is thehollywoodcoming.com. It just redirects you to my own special page on my own website, which is kryanhenisey.com, and I am at K Ryan Henisey everywhere. So you can find Jesus at any of those locations, and more about where to find your Jesus sighting. And I will be appearing as Jesus 3.0, their Rainbow Majesty, the Hollywood Coming, We Ho Jesus, from July 17th through the end of August. So every Saturday and Sunday for a minimum of 2 hours at some point during the day.
Sounds great.
I'm so excited. I'm gonna come find you as Miss Art World and take a selfie.
Yes, I love that.
Jesus.
I'm gonna reach out to Plastic Jesus and be like, dude, sometime you're out on the street, I want a picture with you. Like, I don't need art. I just want the two Jesuses together.
He would totally do it. He's super nice too.
It sounds amazing.
Thank you guys so much for listening to the Miss Art World podcast. Just a reminder, we are on Instagram. If you want to watch us all Zoom together, we are on YouTube at the Miss Art World channel. And you can always look us up on missartworld.com for all of our past episodes and links to where to find us on the various listening platforms. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. Thank you, Emily and Samuel. Bye. Everyone's got to say bye too.
Bye.
Great.